Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human interest stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today's Sunday and it's June the 15th, 2025. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, I want to thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you find the information here to be informative. And if you're a return viewer, by all means, thank you for coming back. You know, I always say the tide changes so frequently here on these YouTube streets, so you always have to acknowledge where your support comes from. And I want you to know I sincerely thank you for your support. So feel free to like and to share this video, and don't forget to subscribe. Well, I'm sure you've noticed there's a lot going on these days when it comes to the topic of SA sexual assault. It's in the spotlight. But then again, that's nothing new. We've been talking about it for quite some time. And even though the emphasis appears to be more on what's going on with the adults, make no mistake, we'll continue to focus on what's going on with our children here in our state. The threat continues, and we need to continue to make this topic a priority for discussion. But if there's one thing I hope we all get out of these videos, is that there's a need for more consistent sentencing guidelines. We have a lot to discuss in this video, so let's go ahead and let's get started. So in this video, we're going to summarize some of the recent convictions for child sex crimes. No need to say alleged. These were convictions resulting in sentencing. Some long sentences, some which were very, very short. You may think it's unbelievable. So let's go ahead and see what we were able to find out. And for the first case, we traveled to Wilmington, North Carolina, where the headline read, "Man sentenced to a maximum of 147 years on child sex charges in Brunswick County." And the date of this reporting was May 8, 2025. And the convicted predator is this man right here, Justin Burney, who was recently found guilty of sex crimes by a jury after a 9-day trial. According to reports, police began investigating him back in 2023 when a call was made to the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office. It was determined and verified that him as a suspect back then had molested 3 minor children. We don't know the ages of the children involved or the length of time the abuse actually went on, but after forensic interviews with all of the children, Burney was arrested and charged with 5 counts of statutory SCX offense with a child by an adult and 9 counts of indecent liberties with a child. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of details we will never learn because minors were involved. But after he was found guilty of all of the charges, the judge sentenced him as follows: 4 consecutive sentences of 300 to 420 months, followed by 3 consecutive sentences of 19 to 29 months. The total time is 1,248 to 1,767 months. That's between 100 and 147 years in prison. And if he and he's also required to register as a sex offender. But this definitely sends a strong message to prospects in Brunswick County. They're coming for you. This is the type of sentence that advocates love to see. And for the next case, we traveled to Greensboro, North Carolina, where it was reported that a former Greensboro police officer was sentenced to 90 years, 90 years, for child sex crimes. And we're talking about the now former police officer Joshua Oliver. No picture provided, but keep in mind when the incident took place, he was indeed an active police officer. And this is the conclusion to an investigation that began back in 2022 when allegations were made and he was placed on administrative leave by the headquarters police department. And once an initial investigation was completed, he was fired from the police force. So essentially, Officer Oliver was charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor. He was eventually charged with having SCX with a child who was under the age of 13, and this abuse went on for a period of 2 years. So he was initially facing 6 counts with 4 counts of statutory SCX offense with a child and 6 counts of indecent liberties with a child. Also, he was facing charges of abuse of a female and giving alcohol to a minor, and he was issued a bond of $1 million. Now, the officer wife, Crystal Oliver, pictured here, she also faced charges in relation to this case, but her charges were of a lesser nature. She faced charges of child abuse because allegedly it was alleged that she most likely knew what was going on and failed to report it to the police. She eventually pled guilty to those child abuse charges, and her sentence was probation, and she was also ordered to pay restitution. Don't really understand why probation, but that's the law, and those were her charges, and thus was her sentence. Probation, and she had to pay restitution for guilty. And now let's get back to Police Officer Oliver, who was found guilty of all of the charges: abuse of a child under the age of 13, which went on for over 2 years, giving alcohol to a minor, abuse of a female, contributing to the delinquency of a minor. He was found guilty, and this is the sentence he received. He was given four sentences that he will have to serve one after the other, and the sentences each will be from 192 months to 291 months, four times over. So he would serve a minimum of 64 years and a maximum just around 90 years in prison. Now, we have not been focusing heavily on women who are predators of our children. So in this video, let's give two of them our attention. And for the first one, we traveled to Raleigh, North Carolina, where the headline read, Raleigh woman sentenced for sex trafficking of a 12-year-old victim and production of child pornography. This was a case that's prosecuted by the Eastern District of North Carolina, and the date of this reporting was March the 10th, 2025. And investigators say this case all started when police received a report about a missing teenager. Later that same night, they received a call from a local hotel about a person who had overdosed. When police arrived, that overdose victim was the missing 12-year-old female. She was then transported to a nearby hospital for treatment. Law enforcement then became aware that the 12-year-old female had been advertised for commercial sex on two separate websites. And on those websites, there were multiple new pictures of the young child and falsely claiming that she was 19. And those postings had been on those websites for several days prior to the actual day that they were found. And there were two women identified as being responsible, and they had been communicating about trafficking this child as well as discussing of her real age. There was no mystery. They knew she was 12 years old. And one of those two women is pictured here, 21-year-old Brianna Pinnock. And when police searched her devices, they found the same child pornography pictures and also pictures of the 12-year-old that had been used in the advertisement for the website for sex. Those pictures had been taken at one of the women's home, and police say that this woman, Brianna Pinnock, has a history of sexually exploiting minors and promoting prostitution. Now, she was eventually arrested and charged with sexual exploitation of a minor and promoting prostitution, and she was issued a bond of $1 million. But I just have to say, at age 21, she's barely still a child herself. And this is what she's doing. And if she has a history of sexually exploiting minors, that is probably how she got to where she was. She probably was a victim herself. So let me tell you a little secret before we get back to Brianna and her sentencing. You know why that victim was in that hotel room and was OD'd? That 12-year-old had OD'd because they had given her too much narcotic. And you know why? They'd given her narcotic because they wanted her to be out of it to prepare her for the next client. They wanted her to be out of it. So they gave her narcotic and they probably just gave her too much. So she OD'd. But that probably saved her from a lifetime of sex trafficking because she was able to be rescued from that situation, taken to the hospital, get the help that she needed, and return to her family. And and by the way, the parent of that victim told the media that this woman, Brianna, was no stranger. This woman here, this had befriended that 12-year-old, and she had encouraged that 12-year-old to run away. And this is where she went. Took her to a hotel and got her involved in the sex trafficking trade. So Brianna, as I mentioned, pled guilty, and she was given a sentence of 18 years in prison. And let me tell you, I don't think that's enough time because most likely she's not going to serve 18 years. She'll serve some time and then she'll get out. And they already said she's got a history of this type of behavior. She's been doing it for some time. So she probably will go right back to doing the same type of behavior in the future. But nonetheless, right now, she's going to be going away for a period of 18 years. And here's another case coming out of Elizabeth City, North Carolina. And it's a case that was prosecuted by the Eastern District of North Carolina. The date of this reporting was April the 15th, 2025. The news headline read, Brunswick County man sentenced to over 15 years for distributing child pornography. Now, this is a case that I find really scary because this man, Tyler Godfrey, when police finally got him on their radar screen, they realized that he had been communicating with children since 2013. Imagine that, 2013. And it was just recently that the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children alerted authorities that he had been uploading child sex material. And when police finally got a hold of him, they charged him with over 100 charges of sex crimes involving minors. They say not only was he communicating with these underage children, he was coercing them to send him naked pictures of themselves, and some of them actually did. And there were some that he sent pictures to. There was a 13-year-old that he was sending pictures to and then communicating and fantasizing about sexually violating a 10-year-old. Simply deplorable. But as I mentioned, he was charged with over 100 child sex crimes. And here's a list of his charges. 50 counts of third-degree sexual exploitation of a minor, 1 count of first-degree sexual exploitation of a minor, 1 count of indecent liberties with a child. That's in one location. And in another location, he was charged with 2 counts of first-degree exploitation of a minor, 1 count of indecent liberties with a child, 14 counts of second-degree sexual exploitation of a minor, and 34 counts of third-degree sexual exploitation of a minor in another county. And when he was recently sentenced, he was given 15 years and 8 months of jail time, followed by a lifetime of supervision whenever he's released. And for the next case, we travel to Winston-Salem here in North Carolina, and the news headline read, Triad man sentenced up to 29 years for child sex crimes, and the date of this reporting was May the 16th, 2025. And this case is the perfect example of why you don't allow anyone to stay in your home, not even the ones you feel that you know. And we're speaking about 24-year-old Joel Hurd, who was recently found guilty of child sexual assault and is being sent away for over 2 decades. Now, Joel Hurd was a close family friend of this particular family, and one day the family called the police to report that their 11-year-old daughter had been assaulted and that the person responsible was this man, Joel Hurd. Now, it was reported to investigators that Hurd was again a close family friend and he had been assaulting this young child. In fact, he had done it once, he had done it multiple times when he spent the night over at the family's home. The victim told police the assault began when she was around 9 years old, and each time he had instructed her not to tell anyone about the abuse. The girl stated the shock and trauma of it all prevented her from telling anybody until recently when she found the courage to tell her parents. And when interviewed, Hurd confessed that he had indeed been assaulting the child since she was around age 10. So on May the 15th, a jury in Forsyth County found a 24-year-old guilty of first-degree statutory sex offense with a child and 1 count of taking indecent liberties with a child. And it's sentenced 200 to 348 months in the state penitentiary. That is 25 to 29 years in prison. And when he's released from prison, he must register as a sex offender. And the next case comes out of Asheville, in North Carolina, and the headline read, Convicted Child Predator Sentenced to 16 Years in Federal Prison for Distributing Child Sexual Abuse Material. And again, this is a case prosecuted by the Western District of North Carolina. And you can see the date of this reporting was May the 22nd, 2025. And this is one of those cases that makes you question whether a convicted sex offender can actually be rehabilitated. Take, for instance, this man, 40-year-old Justin Matthew Atkins. He had just been released from prison for, after he had been convicted for child sexual offense, and he was placed on probation. And just a few months into that probation, he was arrested again. Different day, same problem. So he was released from prison in April of 2023, and in November of 2023, the marshals conducted a search of his home, and guess what they found? Child pornography. Not only did they find it, they found evidence that he had been uploading it into the wild web. So fast forward to last December, he pled guilty, and in May he learned his sentence. 16 more years, followed by a lifetime of supervision, and he must register as a sex offender. And then we have another case. He's not just a repeat, but a repeat offender. The news headline read, Convicted Charlotte sex offender sentenced in third child sex crime arrest, and the date of this reporting was May 8, 2025. And we're speaking about 62-year-old Ricky Grover Aaron. According to reports, he had been arrested and prosecuted twice in the state of Tennessee. And after he was released, he had moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, where, he had moved here after serving his time. Investigators say he failed to register as a sex offender, which he was required to do. And a search of his home, they discovered he was not only producing child sex abuse material, he was also sharing them with others online. Investigators say they found over 300,000 images of children, infants and children involved in various sexual acts. Ladies and gentlemen, I said over 300,000 images of our children and our infants. Now, once arrested this third time, he did plead guilty. And again, he was sentenced this time to 10 years. He will also be required to pay restitution, followed by a lifetime of supervision after he's released. And I don't think that 10 years is long enough, considering the extent of the information he had in his possession and the amount of children who were harmed. They may not have been harmed by him, but they were harmed by creating those images. I really feel he should have been sentenced to life in prison, and that is my personal opinion. And moving right along to Ashe County here in North Carolina, where the news headline read, Ashe County man sentenced to 25 plus years for child sex offenses. And the date of this reporting was June the 4th, 2025, just a few days ago. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you realize I'm bringing you recent cases, things that are just happening within the last couple of days or the last couple of months. And this case is about Adams Michael May, who pled guilty on May the 19th to several counts of statutory RAPE of a child and felonious sexual assault. So this case started back last July when authorities got word that a child had been sexually violated and that May was the suspect. And before he could be apprehended, he fled the state and ran to Tennessee. And 4 days later, they found him hiding in a hotel in Tennessee. So he was arrested and charged with 2 counts of statutory RAPE of a child by an adult, 4 counts of indecent liberties with a child, and of course, fugitive extradition from another state. So he pled guilty last month, and his sentence is 25 to 35 years in prison. And hang in there with me, ladies and gentlemen. We're almost done. The next case comes out of Marksville, North Carolina, where the news headline read, Former Marksville restaurant owner sentenced to 14 years in prison. And the date of this reporting was March the 18th, 2025. So information into this restaurant owner started based on a tip to police from the Center for Missing and Exploited Children, indicating that this man pictured here was uploading child porn to the online web. And when police executed a search warrant of his home, they saw pictures and videos leading them back to the restaurant because it was showing images and pictures from in the restaurant. And when police searched the restaurant, they found a camera hidden in the women's bathroom. And of course, on his phone, he had images and videos of women, of children and infants from the bathroom. So Mr. Luigi eventually did plead guilty as charged, and he was sentenced to 14 years, followed by 15 years of supervision, and he must pay $74,000 in restitution. And finally, I want to share this case because it has left me scratching my head in confusion and feeling a bit disappointed as well. But nonetheless, I'm simply sharing the findings from another case as presented by various news media organizations. And the news headline read, "Ex-teacher gets probation in sex crimes case." And the date of this reporting, as you can see, is May the 13th, 2025. And we're talking about 41-year-old teacher and high school coach at Grace Creek High School, 41-year-old David Lee Gregory, and he was arrested last year on charges that he solicited several young girls from the high school to visit his home at night for sexual encounters. It was also reported that he had sent inappropriate photos of himself to students under the age of 16 and requested nude pictures from them in return. Now, those were the basis for his charges. Well, he entered a plea agreement and he did plead guilty to 2 counts of disseminating obscene information to minors under the age of 16 and 8 counts of cyber stalking and disseminating harmful materials to minor. And he was sentenced to a term of 12 to 16 months in prison, but his sentence was changed to supervised probation for 30 months. Yep, probation. That's what he got. It was stated that although he did in fact solicit those young girls to come to his home at night to engage in SCX, that none of that had actually taken place, but the girls had been solicited. But I'm a bit confused because I don't understand what's happened here, because it appears the only reason the acts never happened is because the girls did not show, but they were solicited. But then again, I'm not the judge and I'm just reporting on his sentence. However, he was not totally set free. In addition to the sentence of probation for 30 months, he agreed to forfeit his teacher license and agreed never again to apply for a teaching position or a coaching position. Never means for the rest of his life. I wonder who's going to enforce that order. It seems kind of silly to me because I'm sure he, as time goes by, he can go to another state and apply for another teaching position or one as a coach. Again, I'm a bit confused, but these are the facts of the case as reported in the media. And so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is just a few of the recent convictions for child sex crimes in our state. I have to tell you, there were so many of them, but I tried to bring a few that would highlight some of the strategies they use to violate and place our children at risk. Again, this is just a small sample, and keep in mind that we need to remain vigilant because we need to know what they're doing. We need to understand the strategies they are using, and keep in mind they're out there just like vultures, and they're waiting and ready to strike at a moment's notice. And that's all I have for you right now. Feel free to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about this video. And by all means, feel free to like it and to share it. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button. It's on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on the bell that looks just like this one, that's the notification bell. If you click on that notification bell, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.